Welcome to the Heidi Thorne Show. I'm your host, Heidi Thorne, and in this podcast I share my real-world self-publishing and small business experience with you. Before we get started, I just want to remind you to like, comment, share, follow, and subscribe. Now let's get on with today's show. December 2022 marks the end of my 14th year on Twitter. In light of the culture changes and chaos from its recent acquisition by billionaire Elon Musk, will it also be the end of me using Twitter? Let's talk about that, since I'm sure many of you are also considering your future on Twitter. I loved Twitter, past tense. I joined Twitter in December 2008, and it was very good to me, bringing thousands of dollars in revenues to my business over the years, friendships, and fun. But that was then. A good Twitter friend of mine posted a picture when a bunch of us Twitter pals got together in real life at a conference around 2011. A few of us are still connected on some social platform, whether that's Twitter or elsewhere. I loved my early Twitter tribe, and some of those people changed my work and life forever. Unfortunately, that was then. Now I have almost no active relationships on Twitter. In the early days of Twitter, Twitter's only been around since 2006. It was a much smaller pond. Currently, the number of users depends on whose stats you're reading or what those stats represent. There are differences among overall users, active users, daily active users, and monetizable active users. But recent stats I've seen hover around 300 to 350 million Twitter users. Back in 2010, Twitter grew from 30 to 54 million. That's great growth, but still a smaller user pool than its rivals at that time, such as Facebook, which had over 600 million users at the end of 2010. Our early tweet feeds were filled with posts to and from a smaller pool of people, so we could get more familiar with the people popping up in our feeds. Even if it's slipped a bit in growth and active users in recent years, Twitter is a crowded and noisy space. While we can blame competition and information overload for Twitter's decline as a social space, I have to admit that some of the change in my Twitter experience is due to changes in me too. When I started using Twitter, I was active in the promotional products business and the hashtag community of trade show and event professionals. The chatter I had within the community was about events and marketing. There were very few swag pros in those conversations, so it afforded me the opportunity to provide some unique value. Through my event connections, I also became active in a community of authors, bloggers, and speakers, many of them being very high profile. I helped co-moderate their Twitter chats for the community too. It was one step away from the events world and one step closer to the next step in my career. After 17 years in the swag business, I closed those operations in early 2016. But by then, I was already flexing my expertise and experience in writing, editing, and publishing, now helping authors, speakers, and consultants with their self-publishing. This is really when my breakup with Twitter began. I found the author and writing communities on Twitter less conversational than my event friends. I did searches to find writer people and writing hashtags, but I wasn't getting traction similar to the volume and speed I had several years earlier. I'd try to retweet or reply to many of them, but it would take days for them to acknowledge it, if they did at all. I saw a lot of my buy my book type posts. I can't say if this author behavior was attributable to that demographic or due to changes in how people were using Twitter in general. In the smaller early Twitter pond, tweets were conversation. Today, they are updates. My Twitter feed went from being a social channel to a news channel. Similar to the bottom of the screen news headline crawl you see on broadcast news channels such as CNN. Twitter is no longer a social channel, in my opinion. We just call it social media since that's the way it started. Just because the public can comment on issues or content doesn't make it social. It's just a forum. Sadly, from what I've observed of Twitter now, that forum lacks collegiality, congeniality, and consistency. A while back, Twitter switched from its traditional chronological home feed to a curated one that may include some or all of your chosen users to follow, along with suggestions, promoted tweets, and sponsored tweets. After some backlash, you can now switch to a purely chronological feed as you had in the past. Honestly, I'm thankful for the curation. In the early days, the purely chronological feed could get flooded with Uber tweeters and you wouldn't see anything else from anybody else. However, curation also reduces the chances of your tweets showing up in your followers' feed at a certain time because it's controlled by an algorithm. We're already used to that on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. But we do have to be aware that our tweets may get less visibility because of it. So that I could make a more informed decision on my future on Twitter, I did an analysis on all, yes, all, the accounts I was following on Twitter, which numbered a bit shy of 7,000. I know you're thinking, hey, Heidi, don't you have anything better to do? Well, yes, I do. But being the analyzed to death, overthinking, extra person I am, I really wanted to take a more scientific approach. As a side note, I hit my Twitter following ceiling. If you're a current friend and you're wondering why I haven't followed you there, that's why. Please don't think I was ignoring you. I wasn't relishing the thought of reviewing and unfollowing thousands of accounts to make space for my new people. I wanted to manually clean up my act there so as not to get my account suspended due to high unfollow activity. Plus, I wanted to see what my Twitter tribe was up to. I must warn you though, this is going to get a little scary because I found it to be more like ghost hunting. There were a few accounts that, sadly, really were ghosts. I knew that these people had really died, but their zombie Twitter accounts lived on. There were also many, many accounts that were acting like zombies. Some had links to things like their auto-posted horoscopes or other low or no value content. That's all that was populating their feed. Others did great Elvis has left the building impressions. Their accounts were up, but they had ghosted Twitter years ago. Some back as far as 2014, even earlier for some. You have to remember I've been on Twitter for 14 years. Reviewing some of the accounts brought back some memories of people I used to be chatty with, but haven't been in years. Our paths no longer aligned, or they joined the ghost and zombie group on Twitter, or aren't active online anywhere. This deep dive was also like opening a time capsule of my career. It was so very evident that I was in the events and promotional businesses in the beginning. These accounts and I are no longer relevant to each other, and I unfollowed the majority of these folks. They won't miss me, and I won't miss them. Back then, too, we all followed a lot of people, including lots of high-profile celebrity-type accounts. I followed a lot of sports and media profiles. They won't miss me following them either. As I would come across an account for an author or speaker or someone who could potentially have interesting or useful content, I would look at their profile and tweet stream. If they hadn't tweeted in years, or if they tweet less than once every couple weeks or so, I unfollowed them without hesitation. Here are a couple of tips to avoid becoming a Twitter ghost. Don't pin a super old tweet to the top of your tweet stream. If you do pin a tweet, Change it frequently or unpin it after maybe a month or so. Some people won't scroll down past the noise of promoted and sponsored tweets to see the rest of your current tweets, and they'll think that that pinned tweet is your most recent tweet. If you are truly moving on from Twitter, and many of the accounts I reviewed are, post or pin a tweet saying goodbye and thank you to your followers so that they know you've left the Twitterverse. Then leave. I saw some that were adios Twitter and then kept tweeting. If you do come back, tell them you're back instead of being a zombie tweeter. As I'm writing this, I've already dispensed with 50% of the accounts I was following. I'll likely say goodbye to many, many more by the time I'm done. I just don't have the interest or energy bandwidth to follow them. I do have author friends who are very sold on Twitter as a social media platform. In theory, I am too, due to my early positive experience with it, and I love the concept and format of it. Other friends are making an exodus from Twitter due to their objections to Elon Musk's political positions and meddling. Others think he's going to ruin Twitter and that the platform is headed for its demise. Both are valid concerns. My stance is that I don't know what's going to happen to Twitter. If this early chaos is any indicator of the future, it's going to be a bumpy ride with the transition. I don't want to lose my username that I've had for 14 years and possibly have to reestablish it and an active presence there when and if things settle or get better. I'm also not that hep to build a new audience on alternatives such as Mastodon. I also had to chuckle when I saw that Substack is wooing Twitter users to switch over to their platform. That's a completely different project in audience building. Actually, that's really the building of an email list. I've ranted on both Substack and email marketing before. Both are significant projects and not just a quick jump. Plus, your followers have to be on those alternative platforms too. Many won't be. I've found more engaged audiences for my content on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. I've moved out and moved on from actively using Twitter and have reset my expectations. While I still tweet links to my latest content, I don't expect that many, if any, genuine business or personal friendships will continue or develop. I also don't expect a lot of on-Twitter engagement or conversation. I'm just glad if one of my followers is kind enough to reply, retweet, like my tweets, visit links in my tweets, or cross over to one of my other more active social channels. Instead of bemoaning the loss of conversation and relationships, I've decided to embrace Twitter's news crawl aspect. I'm using it as my PR and content newsfeed. I'm not sure how long this adventure will last due to Twitter's future or my own, but there are other platforms where we can keep connected. Subscribe to my podcast and YouTube channel where I plan to remain active. Thanks to everyone who has been with me on my Twitter journey all these years. I hope you found that helpful, and if you did, please rate, review, and subscribe to The Heidi Thorne Show on whatever podcast app you like to use. I'm on all the major ones, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you like the YouTube video better, all you have to do is subscribe to my Heidi Thorne channel, which is at Heidi Thorne channel, and turn on the notification bell so you get an alert when there's a new video. I would appreciate it if you would share either the audio or the video with your friends on social media, including on Twitter. My self-published books are available on Amazon, Audible, and Apple Books. All you have to do is go to one of those sites and type in my name, Heidi Thorne, and my author page will come up with a list of all available titles. If you'd like to connect with me, my website is HeidiThorne.com. Thank you so much for listening and for your support. I'll look forward to talking with you again in the next episode, and in the meantime, have a great day.